It is the Fantastic Four today. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone. We have Joey Lynn Invisible Girl Huff from the great county of Frederick, north of Montgomery County, part of Western Maryland, soon to be the state of Western Maryland.
Good evening. Happy Shamrock Friday.
That's
Shamrock
right.
Friday.
Yeah, it looks like they overdid the whipped cream in there, though.
Yes.
And that's why I was telling them don't put the whipped cream in because you actually get more of the Shamrock Shake without the whipped cream.
Not really, because I see them do it. They add it afterwards, so it's just like if they fill it up at the top with the Shamrock Shake, and then they add the whipped cream after that.
No, but I've seen it the other way too, where they'll like do like leave like a quarter inch or something like that, and then they'll do the whipped cream. So you get a quarter inch more without the whipped cream.
I think we're
Yeah,
fine without the extra calories as it is.
yeah. I mean, hey, how do you rate the Oreo McFlurry Shamrock, Don? I haven't tried it yet because I'm thinking it might be a little too strong with the what do you call it, the mint flavor? I mean, the Oreo flavoring would overpower the
Well,
Shamrock Shake, so to
it's
speak.
kind of like the whipped cream. I mean, that's kind of mostly at the top, and so you kind of dig through that, and so you're gonna get it's like Oreo cookie stuff, and then you
Yeah.
get the Shamrock
And
part.
for all you folks who are just tuning in, we're going to talk about the politics of a Shamrock Shake and how McDonald's keeps it only around for a short-term period while we'll start seeing pumpkin spice in July. But anyways, we are joined by Dr. Don Irvine, Dean of Media Politics in DC for many, many years. Welcome, Don. How are you doing this Friday?
Doing fine. Thank you, Dwight, for the Shamrock Shakes again.
Yep.
Glad to
Thank
do
Being
it.
generous.
Glad to do it. It's like this. It's kind of like this. You've got the happiest time of year. You got Christmas. Then you got Shamrock Shake season. Yeah,
That's
and it's kind of nice, because it falls when we don't really have any holidays or anything like that.
I
Yeah.
guarantee this is the most business McDonald's will ever get from Dwight during the years. Just this one.
Actually, I do like their French fries also, but I don't like them as much as I used to.
and
But
I guess
and
we get
then
free fries on Friday.
free fries on Friday.
Yeah,
That's kind of
the
cool.
I just saw it when I went to get the Shamrock Shake.
That's kind of cool.
Just an
So
FYI, Dwight.
did you get the free fries today?
I did not.
That is that's great. And then we're also joined by Dr. Jeff Thornton, media and security expert on all things cyber. How are you doing, Jeff? Happy Friday.
Thank you.
Good. So let's just now that we got the most important topic out of the way, Shamrock Shakes, and why McDonald's should have those all year round. Frankly, because I bet their Shamrock Shake sales would go up if they have them around all year.
Just start a change.org petition, Dwight.
I think we should. I think we should. But it's been a busy week. We had the president spoke at CPAC last week. I think that's a good starting point. Like you had a lot of support for the President Trump at CPAC. I think if he runs, he gets our nomination again. Frankly, although I'm kind of more the Ron DeSantis school of thought, let the president be a kingmaker and let him pick Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis would be a great two-term president. And in all fairness, in the primary, I liked Putnam actually in that primary, but Ron DeSantis is also a great guy too.
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, DeSantis has shown that he's more than up to the job right there in Florida. I mean,
Mhm.
he has been a tremendous success. We had that discussion in the club group chat about 2024 candidates and things like that. DeSantis, I mean, in the straw poll from CPAC, he had what 24% or something like that to
Yep.
55. If you think about it, I mean, with as many Trump supporters as there were down there, I would have expected that Trump to receive a higher number than that. And those straw polls at CPAC are always kind of wonky and weird anyway. There's a litany of people who've won that straw poll that haven't done diddly squat.
Yeah, Ron Paul.
Yeah, Ron Paul in particular, because part of the nature of those straw polls, at least in the past, has always been is that it's very easy to stuff the ballot box by just bringing in your supporters. I think under COVID, even with Florida being open as much as it was, I don't think they had that kind of impetus quite the same. Plus, it is almost like you got to pay to vote anyway, right? You got to be you have to be registered for CPAC, and whether or not you're a student or just a regular person, you're basically, part of that thing is that your fee also goes to allow you to vote. So it's not exactly a free and open election. It's a spot in time. McConnell, as much as the fighting between, Trump and McConnell, he did say that, if Trump decides to run, he probably should be the nominee. But Joey Lim, does that make you happy if Trump runs again in 2024?
Yes. I mean, I'm a huge Trump supporter. I'm not sure he'll do it again. I mean, I know he said that he would like to beat the Democrats for a third term, or a third time. I'm not sure he'll do it. I foresee him being more of a kingmaker. But it's hard to say. And if he does decide that he wants to run, I will support him.
I would expect nothing less from Joey Lim.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, here's the thing, too. I mean, Trump gave this speech. We talked about this a little bit last Friday because, we knew he was giving the speech on Sunday. And, at that point in time, I think, it was kind of a wild card situation. We did not know for sure whether or not he would stick to what had been leaked that he would say. President Trump tends to be very off script. Whatever kind of floats in his mind, he will say. He's unabashed in what he says. And yet he pretty much stuck to some of the the better points. And I thought for a speech for Trump, that was actually one of his better speeches. And I think the media's reaction to the speech shows, how the reaction was. What a good speech it was, because all their thing was like, here's the 50 lies he had in the speech or whatever. What you just mentioned about him saying that he might beat the Democrats for a third term, that kind of that they were apoplectic, like, oh, here we go, voter fraud, all the things. They want to dredge all that stuff up. But Trump really didn't spend a lot of time on that. He spent a lot more time hitting on Biden, which he should have done, and that's good, and criticizing the Biden policies. So I think for the most part he was right on. I'd say, if you're trying to launch a campaign for 2024, I'm not sure he did much for that, because I will say, and I have said this on the show before when Marcus was on here a lot, I used to ask this of Marcus during the campaign, is that exactly what is Trump running on? What are the issues? Because in 2016, build the wall, make America great again. Those were fabulous slogans, fabulous ways to get to do things. He seems to be kind of stuck in a little bit of rut of talking about those things still, but you need some fresher things to kind of get people more excited.
But here's the thing: in 4 years, "Make America Great" will have to be the slogan.
Well, now that Biden's in office, he could use it.
I mean, and not only that, but it'll have to be America first. That
Right.
will probably be, that would have to be his slogan, America First, because clearly America's last now, and it's a free for all. We're just letting everyone in.
Well,
And
yeah.
let's not,
Go ahead, Dwight.
yeah, let's not forget that also Joe Biden and these Democrats are charter members of the Blame America First crowd that Gene Kirkpatrick, who used to talk about, and that's everyone from Joe Biden to Kamala Harris to Nancy Pelosi. It's America's fault first, and then everyone else. That is their mantra, quite frankly, on the left. While nobody seems to understand, nobody seems, if we, let's say we decided we had the powers, omnipotent powers of the Q, and we snapped our fingers and there was no United States of America anymore, you know what would have happened? The Germans would be running Europe. We'd all be speaking German right now. And that's a fact. And if it weren't for the United States of America, the empire would still have their colonies. It was part of the Marshall Plan for the European powers to give up their colonies to get Marshall Plan money. And that was the United States, Yankee imperialists, as they like to call us around the world. But that's not very imperialistic, quite frankly. My view is we should have just let them do what they want, give them the money, and if they want to hold on to their colonies, they can do that. If they don't, they don't. It's like that's just
Hey, Dwight, I want to ask you this question. I mean, like Pat Buchanan back in, what was it, 92 or 96?
Yep.
whatever. I mean, was he ahead of the curve on this? Because I mean, didn't
You
he?
know, I want to say yes, he was. I'll tell you why. Uh, we were all, I mean, Don, back then, I was, we supported President Bush, even though he lied to us and raised our taxes, but he was definitely better than Bill Clinton at that point. But here's the thing. Pat Buchanan, if we listen to Pat Buchanan in 92 about securing our borders to get, about illegal aliens coming in, and why do we keep calling them illegal immigrants? They're not immigrants, they are aliens. That is what the Immigration Naturalization Service is. That's how they're cattle. The green card is an alien registration card. It's not a, immigrant registration card. It's an alien registration card. By the way, now that I said that, I bet somebody in the Biden administration.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say is that I have a feeling that somebody in the government is working on changing that, right?
Yeah, but
Well,
because immigrant
Yeah, I
is
mean-
actually a legal status. When you come and you're a green card, you are an immigrant, and you're on the path
Right.
of becoming an American. And becoming an American, learning our culture, like I tell people who move to Florida that aren't from Florida, look around, understand, become a Floridian. And before you start going and voting like your Long Island liberal values that you come here with, learn to become a Floridian, learn to become an American, and then, but that's, I think Pat Buchanan, if they're calling, how the left loves to say Al Gore was this great, prophet who saw problems coming with alleged global warming. Pat Buchanan, saw this coming almost 30 years prior to it actually becoming a crisis,
I think Joey Lynn, you were saying something.
Joe,
Oh, I was just saying that about, at the border crisis, they just said that it's not considered, they're not detaining, they were talking about detaining them, and I can't remember exactly how they said it, but they were saying that they called it reception, how they're
and why is
receiving
this
these
not a
people.
super spreader?
They're coming in and their reception, it's the reception center, not the detention center. That's what it was. It's not the detention center of these illegal aliens. It's the reception center.
And Jordan,
and-
the cages are also daycare centers.
Right. And so I just found it to be really, it's a reception center for criminals, because when you come into our country illegally, it's called a crime. That's the definition of a crime. Doing something illegal against our law. And it is against our law to come into this country.
Yeah, and granted, it is a misdemeanor. It is a misdemeanor, but here's the thing: you go back in, it becomes a felony. And a lot of these people are repeat offenders, who
And then you have and then they have like 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, Joey Lynn, your connection is.
Do you have any comments about what we've been saying so far?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that necessarily the catch and release program we had before was really effective. I think that we do have a serious issue with immigration. I think I've said it before that I think the part of the problem is that it's on two sides. Obviously, a lot of people in Mexico either, financially disenfranchised, or they actually have significant threats against them that they're looking for asylum in the U.S. So there are some cases where I think we need to be humanitarian and I can say receive them, but at least hear their case to understand their situation. And I'm okay for like seasonal workers, for like people in Texas and other states that need seasonal help for farming and for harvesting and those things. But I think part of the problem too is that even from the people like the farmers, keeping track of their workers, it falls much of responsibility on the farmers as it does the transients. So it's like if everyone was on board with this and really was participating, I don't think it would be such an issue. But because it's kind of like this gray area where it's like we don't really address it fully. We just want to malign it and say, okay, there's never a good case for this. We end up just not treating it very thoroughly. And again, I'm all for having people come in, working occasionally, then going back home. But the problem is that when they are in here and then they're lost in the system, what do you do with them? How do you track them? And then after they're here for a while, it gets more and more of a problem. So it's just, I guess I wish we had a better system across the board to just deal with them holistically and not just, you know.
I mean, back in the days, President Eisenhower did have a Bracero program where seasonal workers would come in, they'd go home, and it was all done above board, and you didn't have the coyotes, you didn't have the, the deaths coming across, and I think a lot of Republicans believe in having a guest worker program, and the keyword being guest. But we are against granting amnesty to how many? What is it? 17, 20 million illegal aliens in America right now. I think that's just I know a lot of people say, oh, you can't send them all back. Let's give it a try. Let's not just say no without trying. It's like when kids say, oh, Dad, I can't clean the room. Well, have you even tried to clean your room? Let's just try and deport some of these people. The government of Israel had a great policy of dealing with terror. They would deport terrorists. They did it. Why can't we give it a try? We should give it a fighting try. Just try before we say we can't do it. What do Jolynn, you agree?
I don't have any problem with people coming here as a,
legal
coming here for work and then going back. Because you have to come here, you have to have some sort of a work visa,
yes,
whatever the term for that is, and then you do your seasonal work here, and then you go back home.
Yeah, like you pick
the country that you're from. It doesn't mean that you're going to come here, you overstay your visa, or you did, and then you, if you participate in a crime, or if you break our laws, I mean, just like if we went to any other country in the world, right? And we broke another country's law, that we would die. Whatever, they would imprison us, like China, they would imprison us, they would torture us, and they would kill us, right?
I mean, and Joey Lynn, you remember?
We would never have the legal system and the legal ins and outs and loopholes that this country has for people who are illegal breaking our laws. So if you break our law, clearly we just let you go because you don't have to show up because you'll be deported or whatever. That's a problem. That's a huge issue, and you should get away with that.
Yeah, if you look at the border, if you go to Canada and commit a crime, I mean, they have you on a watch list. So if you go back over the border again, they have you on record. So it's not like, you have free immunity to visit Canada, even though we have, obviously very friendly terms with them. If you go out there and commit a crime, I mean, you're not welcome back in there. So they do have a system to track those incidents.
And that's one of the problems I have, Jeff, I think with our immigration policy as such, is that we're not really tracking anybody. We have no idea who these people are that are coming in, even when they, and as they go about, we've had this cases after case of these people committing crimes in our country, right? We have the Kate Steinle case out in San Francisco,
And don't forget the biggest case, 9/11.
Right. I mean, we have all these kinds of things that are happening. Other issues. I mean, Dwight referred to it a little bit in terms of super spreader.
Sorry.
I thought it was going to be somebody from Dwight.
Stop.
No worries. She's been called into surgery.
Yeah, but as you referred to, Dwight, I mean, super spreader. We had, the government admitted the other day that after they released a bunch of people, they had 108 cases of people who tested positive of these immigrants, these illegal aliens. So we have, that's another issue. I mean, what are we doing really to check against this? We're doing all we can. We're working on COVID, and then we've got this border situation where they're coming over, and then the figures that came in the other day on these, what the DHS is estimating on unaccompanied minors across the border, they're expecting there'll be 117,000 of them in this fiscal year, this government fiscal year. That is more than the last 2 fiscal years combined. And the Biden administration really doesn't want to call it a crisis, right? I mean, they're trying to find any kind of other word to deal with it, but they have no clue what they're doing when it comes to this border situation.
They don't.
No, because they call it detention center a reception center, and that everyone is welcome. And the problem is that they come in here illegally. They have 72 hours to process them, and then they release them into America. And then and then, we don't know who's here, if they're terrorists, it's terrorists who are sex trafficking young children and women and children. We don't know that, because there's no way to vet these people who come into America and overload our system, our healthcare system. And none of us know if they're positive, or if they're, if they're positive for COVID. And they, the whole big thing for an entire year is they wanted to flatten the curve. Well, how can you, that is so hypocritical. How can you flatten the curve when you're sending, all of these illegal aliens into our country, when we as Americans, you have killed the Dakota Access Pipeline, you've killed the Keystone Pipeline, people are out of work, they can't feed their family. I'm just saying, so you're literally destroying Americans' livelihoods and keeping kids out of school for over a year now, but yet you're opening up the border wide open for all of these people to flood in. And then you got Jen Psaki saying, oh, these are great people, and this is humanitarian. No, it's not humanitarian. What they're doing is they're flooding the border with these illegal aliens so that they can flood them in, and they can create such a chaos that they can force socialism on us, because it'll eventually break.
And Joe,
it'll break our system.
Yeah, and here's the other point about you've got the Biden administration. They put the kids in the cages. They throw a few coloring books. What do they call it? A daycare center. This is basically criminal. And I mean, unfortunately, we know Nancy Pelosi's not going to impeach Joe Biden over this, frankly. But this is one of the responsibilities of the president is national security, and they're not just Hispanics from Central America. We've got Islamic terrorists that are coming through the southern borders. I got a friend of mine who's a physician who tells me stories after stories about how they come and overrun the emergency room at hospitals in places like Phoenix, El Paso, and what they're doing, they're coming there. A lot of pregnant women come there. They get their anchor baby in. They're born there. They get a free pass to stay there. They never pay. They don't pay their hospital bills. Some people come there and have a heart attack, and you got to do all this stuff. You got to put in a stent, pacemaker, all that. You and I, if we had to go, we got to fill out a mountain of insurance paperwork. These people, they just get pushed to the front of the line. They run into the hospitals. And I'm not saying we should deny. I'm not compassionate. I say we should offer health care. To even if they're illegals or if they're citizens, or if they're green card holders. I think they do deserve medical care. But my point is, this is why we're having a healthcare crisis also. The fact that you've got, I don't know if you've been to an ER recently. I mean, it's been a while since I've been to ER, but in the ER, you see, they're like, now it's gotten, like the last 4 years, it's gotten better. You have, but in ERs, you'd be waiting there for hours and hours. I've heard stories of people being waiting, with temperatures of 103. They're just sitting there in ER. Why? Because ER is overwhelmed, because people are going there for everything from a hangnail to, just to get routine medical service. They run into ER and they got to treat you at ER. And this is really doctors. ER doctors are working, being overworked in the ER in many of these cities, where you have this problem. You've got real problems. So you got things like measles is making a comeback because their kids are not vaccinated, but they're going to public schools. But Jolene, were you ever able to send your kids to Frederick County public schools without their vaccination paperwork in order?
Oh, no. No way.
Yeah, but you got these illegals.
Absolutely not.
They're spreading things like the measles.
And my daughter,
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so these are things that we have eradicated. These are diseases that we have eradicated or that we have vaccinated against, and we haven't had in decades. And then now all of a sudden they're making a comeback, and here we are. So my youngest daughter is 8 years old. And when you have a baby, your baby isn't vaccinated for MMR, which is measles, mumps, and rubella, until they're a year old. Well, my daughter, when she was 7 months old, she got the chicken pox, right?
Wow.
mean, that's really unheard of.
Yeah, and I'm saying it's not just the illegals. You got the anti-vaxxer liberals, like Camilla Harris, who said she didn't trust the vaccine for COVID. You got anti-vaxxer liberals.
But it's not, I mean, look, on the anti-vax thing, it's not just, I mean, it's not just liberals. There are conservatives or other that are
Yeah.
that are in that camp.
Yeah,
I have plenty of friends
Yeah.
that are anti-vaxxers, and I do,
Yeah.
I do blame a lot of that anti-vax movement for also pushing up, the kind of the resurgence of some things, that the childhood diseases that we had kind of more or less wiped out, because they're like, oh, I'm not going to vaccinate my kid. Well, all of a sudden, then you start having a whole bunch more, and then now you start having these populations where it is more likely to happen. But shoot, I mean, I'm old enough that I remember when I was a kid getting the whole little like sugar tablet for polio type of thing. And that,
that actually tasted pretty good.
Yeah, no, I mean, that talk about a painless way to get vaccinated.
My kids didn't have that. I don't know. It's like a shot form now.
Yeah, they've eradicated polio. I mean, there was but
things like TB and things like that have come back in parts of the world. So this is like, to me, that was shocking to see that happen. But you're talking about healthcare and all this kind of stuff. But you are right in the sense too, is that, as we were talking about the potential for COVID, is that think about the people that are coming over the border illegally. What kind of health care did they have before they got here?
They didn't.
Very good, if anything.
And I've got friends that immigrated here from Germany. You got to go through a whole battery of health tests before they even let you come into they basically stamp your permanent, your visa on your passport to let you come into America as a permanent resident, And these guys, they're cutting across the border, and it's funny. He was talking to me a couple of days ago. I could have just walked across the Mexican border, and I would not have had to do any of the health tests, and taken like 3 years to be able to get through the process to become a legal American on the route. He just became a U.S. citizen actually a couple of years ago, but he did things the right way, and I think we play by the rules. We're a nation of rules, law and order, frankly, and I think we're kind of straying off our initial conversation.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead. We spent quite a bit of time on this.
Yeah.
I think let's go ahead and move on to some other things. I did want to just we don't have to discuss this in depth, but it'll key into other things anyway, which is that I saw on the news this morning, they're reporting that today was the 1-year anniversary since the first case of COVID was reported in the DMV. So here we are a year later. I didn't expect that we would still be in this situation a year later. I don't know how many people would have or could have predicted that. I mean, what will be normal, and when will we get back to normal?
Well, I was thinking we would be back to, we were going to, like, I remember last year, like, I had a meeting with all my contractors and various government agencies around this time. And I think around March 13th was March 12th was the last time we actually were able to go to work before they had mandatory telework start. Because I remember around this time, we were doing the drill for what would happen, test the VPNs, what would happen if everybody teleworked at the same time? Would it bring down the VPN and so on? And it did not. And I was telling folks, we'll be back to work in the offices by June, July at the latest. And here we are almost a year later.
Yeah, I think we saw the big tech companies, they continue to push back in terms of when people would have to come back to the office, right? They kept moving that calendar.
I think we'll be back to quasi-normal come June, July. I think next Christmas we will be back to where we were pre-COVID. And I think 2020 and 21 will be known as the lost years by historians looking back at this era after 50 years or so.
So like for the state legislature, I mean, they're in session, but they have lots of restrictions and things like this. Do you think, because there's fairly close quarters in a lot of those chambers, do you think things will change much? We get past this, we have everything kind of under control. Will it be closer to normal next year for the legislature?
Dr. Huff, you might have an inside track on that.
Yeah, so Mike gets tested at least once a week, if not twice a week. and there was a couple false positives in his committee, and they had to, they couldn't meet for their committee, and so they had to all work from their offices, which, and then witness testimonies, all Zoom. All these committee hearings and everything is all Zoom. So are they moving any closer to, I don't know. I just don't foresee them going back to normal, as you guys call it, normal. I don't see it.
Do you think there'll be any case to shorten the legislative session from 90 to say 60 days or 30 days? Virginia, they've got a long and a short, like odd, like election. Basically, I think what is it? They've got during non-election years, they have a long session, which I think 90 days. Then they got a 60-day session where there is an election year.
I mean, why is that? Is the legislative session, is that mandated in the state constitution or something, or what? Do you know?
It's 90 days.
Is that by constitution, or is that by just the whims of the powers that be, so to speak?
I
think it's by Comar, but I could ask Mike.
To me, it sounds like it would be something that they would have put into a state constitution or some kind of document like that. But who knows? I mean, maybe.
Well, last year they didn't meet for full 90 days. They adjourned, early. I think they were out by this point, right? Is this by March? This legislature left, right? Because we had definitely a mandatory.
Yeah, and thank God for that. Thank God for that, because they couldn't ram any more bad bills down our throats, bad laws.
That's why they're on steroids this year.
There is a good thing, right?
I mean, COVID was great for Maryland in that case, but otherwise, no.
I tell you, the late Ross Pierpont used to say they meet for 89 days too many. And then I found out where he got that from William Donald Schaefer. He used to say that too.
and so just to get back to you, are we going back to normal? I guess it's all about perception, where you're from or where you live, because North Dakota and South Dakota, like South Dakota's been open for business. Governor Kristi Noem, she's been her state's been open this whole time, and
Florida, Texas,
yeah, exactly. She put it on her people and left it up to them, just like North Dakota. Everybody is open, and North Dakota has herd immunity already.
And let me just touch on this real quick, because I love pointing out MSLSD's pitfalls when they step into stuff, which is every day, every hour of every day. But they actually stepped into a big one where they go, Texas got rid of the mask mandate. And they're spinning it like Texas has mandated no masks. No, when you get rid of the mask mandate, all that means is if you want to wear a mask, go for it. If you don't want to wear a mask, that's fine too. And MSNBC and the liberal media, they're basically chastising Governor Perry, and Governor was the KIV of Alabama that also got rid of the mask, in Florida. And by the way, Florida, the economy is booming there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to say. I mean, we had Texas and Mississippi lift the mask mandates and say businesses can operate up to 100%, that type of thing. So as I think you're trying to allude to, Dwight, is that the media has gone absolutely, crazy about this, and we have, I guess, Fauci and all these other people saying, oh, it's too early. This is a dangerous move. But once again, this is about liberty and freedom type of a thing like this. Whether these governors are not saying, we recommend that you just go around maskless and you do all this stuff. This is going to be up to you, and if you go into a business and you feel uncomfortable because there are people who aren't wearing masks, go ahead and leave, and if you want to wear a mask, nobody's going to
wear a mask.
Yeah, wear a mask. I mean, if they ever lift this thing in Maryland, there may be some places I will continue to wear a mask, and some places I won't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But it's this kind of this knee-jerk mentality of that lifting the mask mandate is immediately going to be a super spreader event. This is a dangerous thing. They're just trying to give the people some choice. And that doesn't mean that Governor Abbott and Governor Reeves won't come back and say, maybe we need to pull back on this. And and the local jurisdictions can always come in there and say, well, we agree. There'd already been stories that a lot of the bigger businesses, like I think the Walmarts and things like that,
Target, yeah.
we're going to keep the mask, issue, the requirement in place. And that's fine. I mean, that means the people can then decide whether they want to go to the stores or not, but that's fine. I mean, I've got my youngest son lives in Utah, and he was talking to me this past week and trying to figure out a wedding date for this year. And they're like, August to October. August would be he's optimistic, thinking that the governor has said there that maybe they'll lift everything off by July. So if they could do that, he could maybe plan for an August wedding. Say that he actually saves enough money for a ring by then.
Is this youngest Junior Irvine?
Yeah, this is Stephen. Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations, Don.
It's not. He's talking about this, but when the girlfriend says,
"Wait till she watches this show," Don.
Wait a minute, watching.
What do you think our kids are going to look like? I think this is a done deal, so I'm hoping I'm not jinxing this.
Does Steven watch the show?
No, he doesn't watch it. You think my kids care about this?
Hey,
they're politically conservative. They don't watch this stuff.
We should have Spencer on sometimes, though. Spencer would be good on this show, though. We should have Spencer on sometimes.
You might be able to squeeze him in there sometime when he's doing something else. But I mean, so we're seeing this. I mean, I think Iowa and other places had already lifted their mask mandates, earlier.
Arizona never had one, from what I understand.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of that, and overall they seem to be fine. I mean, Florida. We talked about this last week. Despite the fact that Florida's been open, they per capita on hospitalizations and deaths, it was lower than New York, which has been pretty much shut down. So, and we've got all these people complaining that, I heard that finally, Disneyland is going to reopen with restrictions. Finally a little bit of a breakthrough in California, for heaven's sakes, that people can actually go out and do something.
Yeah.
And Disneyland is actually moving some of its headquarters to Florida. They're thinking about it.
I mean, here's the thing, Don, do you remember when we used to fly into LA for the CRPs? If you looked out the window when we were approaching into John Wayne, it looked like it was a really dark and hazy, you fly into a bunch of smog, when you go to LA. And, my just point is, I'm trying to make it a segue to the whole Green New Deal nonsense and climate change and so on. But we've done a really good job of cleaning stuff up. I mean, now you don't see the soot when you fly into John Wayne Airport. Is it still called John Wayne? Because I understand they're trying to change that. Yeah,
that's a good question. As far as I know, I mean, that was a nice little airport. I mean, they rebuilt the airport. It was really much nicer. But it's one of those quirky things, and where it's a great airport, but it was actually far more expensive to fly out of there than say LAX.
Yeah.
It was actually very competitive. It was a better place to fly out of if you wanted a cheaper flight.
Have you seen the new LAX? They've really done a good job with the renovations there at LAX.
It's been a while since I've been able to get on too many planes. I don't travel like I used to.
Yeah.
Not that I'm anxious to do that anymore, and I'm definitely not going overseas for a while at this rate. All right. So some other things here I just want to ask you guys about. So Representative Swalwell and Representative Gomez. I mean, Swalwell, we just love him so much, right? So they've sued Trump. They're suing Trump for emotional distress for the January 6th riot.
Oh, my.
Good.
To quote Mr.
Good.
Sulu.
Then we should sue them for emotional distress that we've had.
I mean, I'm emotionally distressed every single morning I wake up and Joe Biden is living in the White House, frankly, Can I sue the president for emotional distress? My taxes are going to go up. My quality of life is going to go down, And because of him, I'm not getting a vaccine because he totally botched the vaccine rollout. He had no plan coming in. President Trump had a real plan. His fraudulency had no plan whatsoever on how to distribute the vaccines.
So Dwight, you know where your coronavirus vaccine is?
Yeah, it's at the border for some illegals to get, right?
It's all going in the illegal aliens' arms. Just so you know, you're an American taxpayer, but hey, no problem. Don't worry about that. You get canceled. You are cancel cultured. Cancel Dwight. and every American's COVID vaccine because the
Jolene,
illegal aliens get it.
Jolene, do
Yeah.
you know who Yakov Smirnoff is? Yakov
No.
Smirnoff? Well, he had this great line to quote Yakov Smirnoff, "America, what a country."
Yeah.
He was a Soviet comedian who came to America back, and he pushed the Chrysler K car and the Aries and Reliant K car. Yeah, that was his big thing, right? The commercials he used to do for Chrysler.
I think so, something like that. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, he made quite a little career for himself there for a while.
Yeah, but yeah, what a country.
Yeah, the only country that makes its own
to me, it's kind of ridiculous that you have these these current representatives, House representatives guys, that are actually now trying to sue the former president over emotional distress for this, for which there is no evidence that he did anything that actually created that situation on January 6th. The people responsible were just, they were off the reservation. They were nutcases and everything like that. And there's no hard evidence that Trump played a part in this. But this is also feeding that typical liberal left narrative that Trump was responsible for insurrection, and everything else, blah blah blah. That's what resulted in the second impeachment and all of this kind of stuff. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, what about Swalwell?
Swalwell doesn't want to talk about his Chinese spy lady friend either.
I was just gonna say, what about his honeypot
Same thing.
China spy that he was, messing around with while he was married and had a little baby or whatever, little kids.
Oh.
What kind of douchebag does that?
Yeah, well, Jolene, I got some breaking news for you. Senator Leahy wants to sue Vice President Dick Cheney for when he used the F comment to go F himself, because he's been emotionally distressed ever since then. So he's going to sue Dick Cheney now.
Hey, look, let's, if you can impeach foreign president or former presidents, and if you are oversensitive about comments that happened in the past, I mean, I guess that anything goes anymore, I guess.
But here's the thing.
Let's not just stop at, I hate the F-bomb and whatever. Let's just continue on.
And here's something else, Jolene. We all work in politics, right? And we know you need to have you can't have a thin skin in this business, correct?
Correct.
If Eric Swalwell can't take this, maybe he should find a new line of work, and that goes for any politician on either side of the aisle who wants to be a little bit of a overly sensitive snowflake, who gets their feelings hurt, whether it be you're on a central committee or you are a elected member of the state house, or you're, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, have a thicker skin. There's this little cartoon I'll share later. It was with Democrats trying to find somebody to run against Jesse Helms, and they'd have like a rhino, and and the doctor goes, nope, his skin's not thick enough to stand up to Jesse Helms, and that's the problem. Everyone's all very snowflakey. Look, AOC. She got mad when her video went viral because we were making fun of how she danced when she did that video. Was it TikTok or Troon or whatever? One of those Chicom apps, that she uses.
TikTok,
yeah. But I mean,
well, so do they have? So in American colleges, you have safe spaces, right? So why doesn't, I'm surprised that Congress hasn't developed or, given some sort of safe spaces in Congress for the House members, for the representatives.
Nancy is working at that, between her shopping sprees and her flights, and she's going to work on a safe space. And I think they'll make the Senate, the Capitol Visitor Center a safe space.
Right. So is that going to go along with their 6 foot or more, 10 foot tall? I don't know how tall the fences are with the razor, barbed wire at the top. How about Nancy Pelosi tear down that wall? How about that?
Right. Jolene, every Republican running for Congress, we've got that speech. Speaker Pelosi, tear down this wall in 2022.
Yeah. So. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats go ahead and they put this, 6 foot wall with razor barbed wire at the top to keep Americans out, but yet they open the border for everyone to flow in through the border, because from people we don't even know that are not Americans, they're illegal aliens. But hey, you
Joe,
can't put representatives in it, but you can sure come in this country and get all the benefits.
And watch this. I'm going to tie everything together right now. Now, you know how when people were living in East Berlin, they could look out the window and see all the freedoms of West Berlin, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Are we not feeling the same thing when we look at people in Texas and Florida and many other states that are open, and we look, we're kind of just looking and go, wow, those people know what it's like to be free. Are we not becoming East Berlin? There is an East Berlin, Maryland, by the way, everyone.
Well, you know what? That's funny because
by East German refugees.
So Brunswick used to be called Berlin, and now
they changed it around. Yeah, it was changed around World War II, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It's the funny part. Yeah, so we've already been called Berlin. So yeah, we've already been there.
No, but along Route 15, there's a town called East Berlin, like right around the Pennsylvania border.
Yeah, didn't Trump go and have a rally there?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, in 2016.
Yes, he did.
All right, as we wrap the corner here, Mike Pence actually wrote an op-ed for the Daily Signal, and he commenting on criticizing the 2020 elections, some of the things that didn't go quite well in terms of the states that allowed to have a little more broad in their election laws and things like that. And also came down pretty hard on the House representatives for their HR 1 bill that they passed, which is their effort to kind of get their voter reforms and dealing with the Voting Rights Act. And what they really want to do is that they want to make the mail-in ballots and things like that kind of a permanent feature. Things that we dealt with over COVID, they want that to allow that to happen, no excuse, for absentee balloting and things like that. The Senate, that's going to be a tougher road to hoe in the Senate, I think, to get a lot of these things through. But I mean, what's the feeling? I'm going to go to Jeff first because Jeff has been awfully quiet. What do you think about? I mean, how do you feel about just general criticism from, say, Vice President Pence about some of the technicalities of the 2020 election, not stolen election type of stuff necessarily, but just how that went and what the House is trying to do in trying to make like mail-in balloting and all the things that happen permanent nationwide.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, this is a concern for a lot of Americans. I mean, even though I tend not to think that there was, widespread voter fraud, I would still like to see kind of a report that goes through, how, the controls that are in place. I know that there were a lot of challenges, and it seems like, both sides are kind of like, trying to do a power play. And it seems like, even with like the post office, there was reports of like, the post office being crippled through this process. So again, I would love to see a report that kind of just goes through and says, okay, is this a viable method? What are the, controls we have in place to prevent voter fraud? Is this as strong, if not stronger, than than in present voting? For example, if they do the signature verification, if you actually have your signature on file and then they actually do check it, if there is, those controls in place, then I don't have a problem with that. But again, I think there should be some study that's done, because if this is going to be even a plan B in the future, for additional, doesn't be COVID, but COVID B, or, some sort of pandemic that happens again. I mean, this is not going to be the only time, and, for the rest of the, from now to the future, we ever have this kind of problem. So having some kind of contingency in place, having a study done, looking at the, realistically looking at, what are the concerns, what are the controls.
Well, see, Jeff, that's kind of like having a disaster plan. We're not going to use this. I think elections are a function of states, so screw you, Speaker Pelosi, and your HR 1 bill. Elections are focus of the states, not the federal government. I think Republican state legislators and Republican governors should put in no mail-in voting unless you have an extreme emergency, and that is a pandemic, frankly. So, and
times where a person is just just medically not able to go, and if
we've already got that, Jeff. It's called an absentee ballot. Like say if you can't get there, you've got an absentee ballot. You can request one from the state, or you could have a caretaker request one on your behalf, and you'll get a. It's it's not. It's kind of like why are we trying to fix something that was never ever broken to begin with, frankly.
Well, I mean, to me, I mean, they're using, the pandemic as an excuse to expand this type of thing. You know, in Maryland, it used to be you had to, give them a reason to get an absentee ballot. But because of COVID, everybody, they basically decided that it was safer to go to an all-mail ballot system as what allow more people to do that than they had before. Now the problem is that the genie's out of the bottle. How do you put it back into the bottle and stop what's done?
So they just talked about this. I had the displeasure of listening to the EHE committee, which all of you from Montgomery County know Cheryl Kagan.
Yes, we do.
Right?
Yeah, she's one of our many disgraces we have in Annapolis.
Yeah, so she is the chair of EHE. It's like the Cheryl Keegan show there. It's something else. And she uses this filter, and every time she moves, you can see like this blue blob that comes across in different places. And then her hair looks blue, and it's really something else to see. Anyways, I was, my friend testified in that committee about the destruction of her Trump flag and Trump signs, and how, they want to make it a more, like a heftier fine and penalty. So anyways, my point, so my point with that was, she was basically, they were talking about what you were talking about with the voting, the mail-in voting. And they were complaining about how Governor Hogan went and he made it so, because they wanted to mail out, everybody got a ballot. But instead, Governor Hogan decided that you were mailed a letter that said that asked you if you wanted to have a mail-in ballot, right? And then you had to mail it was prepaid postage, you had to mail it back, and then they had to mail you a ballot, and then it was prepaid, and then you had to mail that ballot back and whatever. So they were complaining about how much money it cost for.
Yeah, hold on. First, why are we, the taxpayers, flipping 50 cents to mail a ballot when people? Why can't they buy their own damn 50-cent stamp and mail their own thing?
Because they're going to talk about disenfranchisement.
It's hardly a king's ransom. It's 50 cents. It's more expensive to get this out of a vending machine than it is to get a stamp. And if you can afford this, just don't have a Coke one day.
But wait a minute. You are, you're being like, you're just not being inclusive enough, Dwight. Come on now.
Yes, it's easy for me to say that right in my palatial estate,
I'm just saying. Look, so my point is that it was just, they want, their goal is to continue the mail-in ballot, and they're going to make it they're trying to make it a law.
Eric Lukey's always.
They don't ever want you to go back to the polls again.
Yeah, I remember the good old days of 2008 when we voted on election day, and that's when we voted, and that was it. I don't know why we needed to even have early voting, quite frankly, but I will
here. But it's like I don't really enjoy the long lines of voting. So it's like if I can vote, mail and it's been vetted, I'd probably take advantage of it, because it's a lot easier for me to actually look at the candidates, look at the ballots, have a guide with me, as opposed to going in a booth somewhere, having to stand in line.
Well, Jeff, my compromise is early voting. I will compromise. I will give you 1 week of early voting, but none of this mail-in nonsense. It is like, this is something the Soviets would have done, a mail-in ballot if they wanted to have.
Well, I think it's ridiculous for the whole entire situation. Early voting is ridiculous.
Oh, it is. But
it should be just 1 day. I mean,
I know. But Geraldine, see, I believe in compromise. I will give them 1 week for early voting. No same-day registration. No mail-in ballots. If you want a mail-in ballot, just ask for an absentee ballot, frankly. And if you're not...
The other thing they want to change is they want to, so that you can do whatever you want. You can change your registration. You can vote that same day, everything.
Oh, they may want to reconsider that if we get a lot of people that switch over on election day and ask for Republican ballots in the primary.
I'm saying, another discrepancy.
Also, the downside of that is basically giving us open primaries without really having open primaries. Could you imagine in 2014 if all the Democrats came flooded our and voted for Charles Lawler and he won, he became our nominee because they were threatened by Larry Hogan in 2014, or I mean they did that. We let independents vote when in 2008, if you recall, Joey Lynn, and that's how we got John McClain. McClain became our nominee, the worst nominee we've had in a very, very long time, because he was just gosh darn, gee golly whiz, happy to be part of history. You know, I'm the guy that lost to the first black president. That ran, and it's like John McClain, go away. And I'll never forgive Dick Cheney for not running for president in 2008.
All right, Dwight, I think it's time for final thoughts.
Yes, it is. Final thoughts. Who'd like to go first? Joey Lynn, would you like to go first? Want a final thought? You get more than one final thought, by the way. You don't need to just have one. You can have multiple thoughts if you want.
Dwight always has multiple. He says he has two, and he keeps going.
Yeah, I do.
All right. Well, my final thoughts, I think I kind of said it all today. The left and their cancel culture. Let's cancel culture the left. Cancel. That's first and foremost. Let's cancel them. And Dr. Seuss books. We didn't talk about Dr. Seuss books, but I have a couple of them. None of the ones that are going for $10,000 or $1,000, which is sad. But now they're going ahead and they're canceling the Muppets. Really, the Muppets, Cat in the Hat, Mr. Potato Head. But yet the song of the year is Cardi B. And what's it called? It's Wet Butt. You know Cardi B, right? I don't know. But yeah, I didn't know it either until I saw that. But anyways, I mean, this is ridiculous. Cat in the Hat is deemed inappropriate, and Disney slaps content warnings on the Muppets. Really, like, how far are we going to go before we've just literally taken everything, and everyone is so sensitive about everything to the point where we've just gotten rid of everything, and then we're just totally invisible.
By the way, what's wrong with Breakfast at Tiffany's? That's also TCM or Turner Movie. TMC is not going to show Breakfast at Tiffany's anymore.
Well, because there's too many white people and there's not enough diversity, and you have to have diversity. Everybody has, they're taking all these things. They're taking history out of history books. They're getting rid of everything that they think is offensive or racist, and now their Coke is going ahead and having their employees have some sort of a seminar that they have to go to be less white. Really? What does that even mean? How does one be less white? Shouldn't you be proud? I'm proud of what I was born as. I can't change it even if I wanted to.
But to quote our friends, the Endorians, we aren't white, we're pink skins. I'm just saying, that's what the Endorians say.
So I just think, people need to get off their high horse and all this nonsense and come to grips with this is just, we are just tearing each other apart and tearing everything down that we know as America. And this is not the American dream. And we need to do better.
All right, Jolene, have you also noticed civility's kind of gone down? You can't be even civil with neighbors anymore.
Yes. And then if you wear a mask, no one is talking anymore. They're, if you're in the grocery store, they're, riding their cart right in front of you. They're cutting you off whenever they can. And nobody's saying sorry. Nobody cares anymore.
Has anybody ever yelled? By the way, this goes out to everyone. Has anybody been yelled at for going the wrong way on a one-way aisle?
Yes. They get pretty upset about it from one who has to go to the grocery store every week.
Oh, final thoughts, Jeff. And like I told Jolene, you can have more than one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because we started on Shimmerik Shakes, hopefully we end on Shimmerik Shakes. I do support the Shimmerik Shake, the year-round, shake.
Get them while you can. 12 days left, everyone. 12 days left.
Yeah. Other than that, one thing I'd say too is that I think one of the tragedies of this last year is that the confidence in the American system as a whole has kind of been eroded. So I would like to see that kind of rebuilt, whatever it takes. I know that everyone's there's always gonna be Republicans, there's always gonna be Democrats, there's always gonna be two sides. There's always gonna be the great divide. But we need to get back to dealing with what's best for America, not what's necessarily what's best for one party versus another party. Like Dwight said, there are compromises. It may not be everyone's going to be upset to a certain degree, but we all wearing pants. As long as we can do what's best for the country, I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. So,
John Irvine, final thoughts, multiple thoughts, single thought.
Okay, we'll stay close in here to Montgomery County. I mean, something that, even though I don't have any kids in the school system anymore, I'm still, just amazed that it's taken this long for Montgomery County to get around to start to reopen the schools. And it starts with the special ed students this past week, but it's still going to be a very slow process to get the other students back in for any length of time. I don't think we're going to have most of the kids back until probably after Easter. So, I mean, now you're talking about a couple of months, maybe 2.5 months before the school year traditionally ends. What are they going to be able to learn under that? I just feel terrible for the students and for the parents, the kids who have lost all this learning time, and they've been held, up by the teachers unions and these politicians that doesn't understand anything about what's going on here at all. And, so much for the teachers saying kids are first and things like that, because right now in Montgomery County, as well as a lot of other school jurisdictions, it seems like kids are last.
Yeah, they all want to get their pay raises, and there was some. I'm trying to think where I heard there was some union person. We should get combat pay, hazard pay if we're gonna have to go into the classrooms, just like soldiers get. Yeah, I'm sorry. They're dodging IEDs, gunfire, and mortar rounds. What are you dodging? Honestly.
I mean, look. I mean, it's ridiculous in Montgomery County too, because they're advertising for people. I think it's $15.67 an hour to become basically the proctors of the classroom. So the teacher teaches remotely, and you get a parent or somebody in there to watch the kids that do show up, who will still be taught from the classroom. It's like, this is insane.
It's called a hybrid model.
Hybrid.
Did you hear that? It's a hybrid monitor.
Yeah.
And it's 35 hours a week.
By the way, are we going to go to a 4-day-a-week school week, I think, next year? Because it feels like that's where they're headed with this,
We'll be lucky to get back to school full-time next year.
Well, remember what his fraudulency says, 1 day a week, and that is success.
But then he walked that back as he's walked back everything else. Because he's so confused. He doesn't know which end is up and which end is down, if his wife is his sister or his sister is his wife. He doesn't remember if he's the president or a senator or what.
I mean, look, even the Washington Post fact checker gave Biden 3 Pinocchios for completely botching all this immigration stuff. A number of people who are in the country, how many were Hispanic and non-Hispanic. I mean, he is a disaster. Unless he's got a real script there, if he's trying to talk off the top of his head, it's just a lost cause. I mean, his people have gotten very worried about this.
Well, and then Bill is finishing all of his sentences because he can't finish them. So, I mean, isn't it great that you have someone else finish your sentences for you because you can't remember what you wanted to say?
Oh, but isn't that cute? How they're just so together.
No, they're not.
By the way, we didn't talk about this, but his stream mysteriously cut off when people started asking questions this past. Why doesn't he go and talk in front of the press? Remember, President Trump got a lot of flack for when he stopped doing the.
He's planning on it. They announced that he's planning on it. I can't remember what the date was.
When is his? By the way, why is he giving not the State of the Union, but his address to Joint Session of Congress? When is that going to happen? By the way, we're in March. It should have been around February 20th, but I don't know. Maybe he's going to wait till his 100th day. And
Hey, you remember he didn't have any. There was no vaccines available to him, but somehow, and there was no plan, but somehow he and Camilla got one.
Yeah.
Before they even became president.
So did AOC got one too.
Yeah.
Why did she get one? She's like, what, 26, 27?
Because Congress members are essential, they say.
Jeez, they are essential. Like a root canal is essential, frankly.
Well,
That is
and
how
that's,
essential
and
they are.
it doesn't, it's, her
I
age
shouldn't say root canal, but
isn't as highly affected. So,
a root canal is more essential than Congress, actually. But my final thoughts is a couple things, a couple of programming notes. Next Thursday, we are having a town hall on reopening schools in Maryland with Senator Justin Reedy, Delegate Kathy Shaleka, and Delegate Nick Kipke, as well as a special guest, Governor Bob Ehrlich, is going to come and talk. We're going to be taking questions. Go to MontgomeryCountyRepublicanClub.com to get details on that and sign up and submit your questions that you would like to have answered next week. And then next Wednesday, our sister show Direct Line, we are going to be having Ambassador James Gilmore, former governor of Virginia, former attorney general of Virginia, on Direct Line, talk about his experience. He was ambassador to The Hague. President Trump appointed him to that role, and it'll be a lot of fun. Do tune in. We're going to be streaming live on YouTube and Facebook, so enjoy the show. We always have a lot of fun. And then another programming note, we've got on March 31st, we have the Chesapeake First Ladies. We've had the Chesapeake Governors. Now we're switching it up. We're going to get the Chesapeake First Ladies. We're going to have former Maryland First Lady Kendall Ehrlich and former Virginia First Lady Susan Allen on to talk about what they've been up to. And by the way, and finally, if you haven't subscribed to Bottom Line Governor Ehrlich's podcast on Spotify and Apple iTunes, I say go subscribe, give him 5 stars. The left is already out there. What's her name? Is it Christina Aguilera? Is she the one? Or I don't know, some fans who had the documentary recently. We talked about her briefly last week.
Like Britney Spears or something?
Yeah,
Britney Spears,
Spears,
yeah.
there you go. Her fans are going around basically trying to dox Governor Ehrlich and Kendall's podcast, Bottom Line. So go, give them 5 stars, annoy a liberal, annoy Britney Spears, give Governor Ehrlich a plus and a plug-in. And I think I've kind of overdone it with my final thoughts, but my one final thought is we only have 12 days left to get Shamrock Shake, so go get your Shamrock Shake. You won't see him again.
They're counting down for Christmas or something. The 12 days of Shamrock Shake.
I know, 12 days, because try to get one on the 13th.
17th.
What's that?
St. Patrick's Day is on the 17th.
Yes. It's always
Yes.
on the 17th. Yeah. It's always on the 17th. Like Christmas is always the 20th.
Don't forget your beer.
Yes, that is true. Green leprechaun, beer. Are they going to dye the river in Chicago green this year? Because they didn't do it last year, I think, right?
I think you're right about that.
I wonder if they're going to do it this year.
Mm-mm.
But and also Pi Day is coming up next Sunday, the 14th. Pi Day. Go out and have some pizza or some pie, whichever you prefer. I know we're getting together, and I believe Joey Lynn, you got an invitation to that, and Don for Pi Day festivities next Sunday on the 14th.
Oh, cool.
Yes, we're gonna have pizza pie
Pizza
because that's
pie.
amore.
That's love.
Anyway, so thank you everyone for watching, and get your Shamrock Shake. 12 days left. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.